You're listening to Revenza Tales. My family doesn't just own the world's most powerful tech company. We manufacture time itself. For his retirement, my grandfather gifted control of Chronos Corp to my brilliant, ruthless brother. To me, the dreamer, he gave a broken pocket watch. He told me to fix it if I could. I thought it was a final insult. But when I opened it, I didn't find gears. I found a micro-sculpture of our family tree, with my branch deliberately snapped off, and a single coordinate. It led to a bunker containing my grandfather's greatest secret, a journal. The first entry read, "I stole my grandson's future. I must atone. My brother didn't just steal my birthright. He erased the timeline where I earned it. And I'm going to break time itself to get it back." The atrium of Chronos Corporation headquarters wasn't a room, it was a statement of unyielding dominance, a vast space where architecture met intimidation. Sunlight, calculated and filtered to the optimal wavelength for productivity and awe, streamed through vaulted glass panels that stretched toward the heavens, illuminating a suspended sculpture of a double helix made entirely of interlocking golden gears that rotated with hypnotic precision. The air hummed with silent clean power, carrying the faint, sweet smell of ozone and wealth, a reminder that here, every breath was engineered for efficiency. This was where my family presided over not just a company, but the very rhythm of global commerce, security, and communication. We sold precision. We sold predictability. We sold the illusion of controlling time itself, bending the world to our unerring schedules. My grandfather, Alastair Chronos, stood before the assembled executives, investors, and family, a patriarch carved from diamond and resolve, his silver hair catching the light like a crown. At his right hand stood my older brother Julian, the human embodiment of a perfectly engineered timepiece. Flawless, cold, and devastatingly efficient, his suit tailored to razor-sharp perfection. Julian was the heir apparent, his entire life a meticulously curated prelude to this moment, every achievement a step on a ladder built by our grandfather's expectations. The transfer of power was a spectacle of corporate theater, orchestrated with the precision of a symphony. Julian was given the master keycard, a sliver of obsidian that granted access to every system, every vault, every secret of Chronos Corp, its surface etched with circuits that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. He was given the title of CEO and Grand Projectionist, words that carried the weight of an empire. The room erupted in a wave of perfectly synchronized applause, echoes bouncing off the glass walls like thunderous approval from the gods of industry. Then, my grandfather's piercing blue eyes, magnified behind his spectacles, found me in the crowd, lingering with a mix of pity and something darker, something unspoken. Cashin. The grandson with the inconvenient conscience. The one who asked why we did things, not just how fast we could do them, who dreamed of innovations that served humanity rather than subjugated it. And for Cashin, Alastair's voice, amplified by hidden speakers that made it resonate in your bones, held a note of theatrical pity that twisted like a knife. He held out a small, velvet-lined box, its surface worn from age, a relic in a world of cutting-edge technology. Inside, on a bed of faded silk, rested a tarnished, antique silver pocket watch, its crystal cracked like a spiderweb of fractures, its hands frozen in eternal stasis. A reminder that not all things of value are new, that some broken things are worth the effort of repair. A lesson in patience. A wave of muted, condescending laughter rippled through the crowd, executives exchanging knowing glances, their smiles sharp as they dismissed me as the family oddity. Julian didn't even smirk. My humiliation was beneath his notice, a foregone conclusion in the grand design. The message was excruciatingly clear, a public declaration that cut deeper than any private slight. Julian received the keys to the future, a realm of limitless power. I received a relic from the garbage heap of the past, a symbol of obsolescence. I took the box, the weight of the watch feeling like a leaden insult in my palm, cold and unyielding. I forced a smile, a mask of gratitude over a chasm of hurt that threatened to swallow me whole, my mind racing with questions I dared not voice. The ceremony concluded with more applause, and as the crowd dispersed, I felt the eyes on me, pitying, mocking. I was a ghost again, dismissed to the margins, but beneath the surface, a fire kindled, a determination to uncover what this gift truly meant. I retreated to my workshop, a sanctuary of organized chaos tucked away in a forgotten wing of the Chronos estate, far from the gleaming corporate halls. Here, surrounded by half-dismantled robots that whirred sporadically, holographic schematics flickering in the air like ethereal blueprints, and the comforting smell of solder and old books that grounded me in reality, I was not a disappointment. I was a creator, a tinkerer who found beauty in the broken. I placed the broken watch on my workbench under the bright glow of an articulated lamp that cast long shadows across the room, highlighting the watch's imperfections. The engraving on the back was worn but discernible. Tempus fugit, veritas manet. Time flies, truth remains. Ironic, given the circumstances, a phrase that now felt like a taunt. With the delicate tools of a master watchmaker, a skill my grandfather had forced me to learn years ago, calling it character building in his stern lectures, I began the painstaking process of opening it. The case was stubborn, sealed by age and perhaps intention, resisting my efforts as if guarding a secret it wasn't ready to reveal. My fingers ached, sweat beading on my forehead as I worked, the only sounds the soft clicks of tools and my steady breathing. Finally, with a faint, satisfying click that echoed in the quiet room, the back lid sprung open, releasing a puff of dust that danced in the light. I expected to see gears, springs, a balance wheel frozen in time, something mechanical, fixable. Instead, I saw a miracle of microengineering that stole my breath, my eyes widening in disbelief. Nestled within was not a movement, but a breathtakingly intricate sculpture, carved from a single piece of minuscule ivory and gold, so detailed it seemed impossible for human hands. It was our family tree, roots twisting into branches that represented generations. My grandfather at the base, solid and unyielding, his children branching out with strength, and then us, the grandchildren. Julian's branch was thick, strong, laden with golden leaves that symbolized success and power. My branch was snapped clean off, about an inch from the trunk, a deliberate, violent break that looked fresh despite the age of the watch. My blood ran cold, a chill spreading through my veins as the implication hit me like a physical force. This was no lesson in patience. This was a confession, a hidden message etched in miniature, revealing a betrayal I couldn't yet comprehend. As I stared, transfixed, the light from my lamp hit the sculpture at a specific angle, casting shadows that revealed something more. A tiny, almost invisible seam on the inside of the watch's case lid glinted faintly, a secret within a secret. Using a needle-fine probe, my hands steady despite the racing of my heart, I applied pressure, holding my breath. A nearly microscopic data chip, no larger than a grain of sand, ejected into my waiting hand, its surface catching the light like a diamond. My heart hammering with a mix of excitement and dread, I slotted the chip into my holoreader, the device humming to life. It contained a single file, a set of geographical coordinates pinpointing a remote location, and a complex, 12-digit alphanumeric code that changed every 60 seconds, synchronized to a hidden, encrypted time signal that pulsed like a heartbeat. This wasn't a gift. It was a treasure map, a breadcrumb trail leading to unknown depths. And the first clue was a declaration of war against my very existence, a puzzle that promised to unravel the fabric of my life. The coordinates led to a remote, heavily forested mountain range owned by Chronos Corp, designated on internal maps as a geological research preserve, a label that now seemed suspiciously vague. Access required bypassing several layers of corporate security, a task for which my hobbyist skills were uniquely suited, honed from years of tinkering in the shadows. I prepared meticulously, hacking into the company's satellite feeds to scout the area, my fingers flying over keyboards in the dead of night, always wary of digital footprints. The hike was grueling, the path overgrown and treacherous, branches snagging at my clothes as if trying to hold me back, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. My muscles burned, sweat stinging my eyes, but the anticipation drove me forward, each step building suspense. What if this was a trap? What if Julian already knew? Finally, after hours that felt like days, I found it, a seamless door of brushed titanium, camouflaged to look like rock, hidden behind a cascading waterfall that roared like a warning. The key was the ever-changing code from the chip, my fingers trembling as I input it on a concealed panel, the seconds ticking down. The door hissed open with a pneumatic sigh, revealing a descending elevator that plunged into darkness, the descent slow and claustrophobic, the only sound the hum of machinery. It opened into a cavernous space that took my breath away, my eyes adjusting to the dim glow. It wasn't a bunker, it was a cathedral to a secret, the air cool and still, carrying a faint metallic tang. One wall was a single massive pane of transparent alloy, looking out into a stunning underwater grotto, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast ethereal blue light, fish darting like shadows in the depths. The other walls were lined with books, real, paper books, their spines worn, and banks of advanced, silent servers that pulsed with subtle lights. And in the center of the room, on a pedestal of black marble, sat a device that defied understanding, my approach hesitant as if it might vanish. It was a complex, beautiful sphere of interlocking crystalline rings and glowing filaments, hovering in mid-air, slowly rotating with a grace that mesmerized. It hummed with a low, profound energy that vibrated in my teeth, resonating in my chest like a second heartbeat. This was no clock. It was a model of a universe, a god's toy. Beneath it, on the pedestal, rested a simple, leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with faint symbols. I opened it to the first page, the paper crackling under my fingers. My grandfather's handwriting, usually so precise and controlled, was frantic, scrawled as if chased by demons. I have done a terrible thing. A necessary, monstrous thing. The Godwatch is active. The first divergence is complete. Julian's leadership is assured. But the cost was Cashin. In the prime timeline, the true timeline, it was Cashin who solved the quantum flux instability. It was Cashin who earned the right to lead. But Julian's ambition, my weakness. I could not let him be overshadowed. So I used the Godwatch. I edited reality itself. I created a causal branch where Julian solved the problem. I made the world forget Cashin's brilliance. I broke my own grandson and called it mercy. I have stolen a future. I must find a way to atone. I sank to the cold floor, the journal clutched in my trembling hands, the words a physical blow that knocked the air from my lungs. The truth was unbearable, a revelation that shattered my world. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. I had been erased, my greatest achievement, my destiny, surgically removed from the fabric of reality and gifted to my brother like a stolen crown. The pocket watch wasn't a reminder to be patient. It was a key to understanding that I had been murdered in a way no one could ever see, a temporal assassination. The broken branch. The snapped future. The Godwatch hummed, its rings turning, holding my stolen life in its impossible grasp, mocking me with its indifference. The journal was not just a confession. It was a training manual, page after page of my grandfather's tormented thoughts, his guilt spilling out in detailed explanations of the Godwatch's mechanics. It wasn't a time machine in the classic sense, no DeLorean racing through flames. It couldn't send a person back to alter events directly. It was a reality editing engine, a device that could target a specific causal node, a key decision, a moment of discovery, and splice the timeline, creating a new, dominant branch while the original was folded away into what he called the shadow chronology, a fading echo that lingered like a ghost. His atonement was a desperate, decades-long project, to find a way to safely reverse a divergence without causing a causal collapse, a paradoxical unraveling of reality that could erase entire histories. He believed he was close to a solution, a harmonic convergence algorithm that could carefully merge the two timelines, restoring what was taken without destroying what was built, a delicate balance of cause and effect. But he had run out of time, age and guilt claiming him before he could finish, his final entries filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness. His work was now my inheritance, a burden and a gift. My revenge would not be to destroy my brother with violence or scandal, but to unmake the lie he was built upon, to reclaim my place in the timeline. I had to become a master of a science that shouldn't exist, diving into forbidden knowledge. I spent weeks in the bunker, isolated from the world, living among his notes, learning the language of causality and temporal mechanics under the glow of bioluminescent light. The days blurred, my sleep haunted by visions of alternate selves, the Godwatch's hum a constant companion. I learned that the device required immense energy, drawn from a hidden geothermal tap beneath the mountain, and that its operations were masked by Chronos Corp's global energy grid, a web of power that spanned continents. My grandfather's plan was elegant and terrifying, a blueprint for rewriting history. The convergence algorithm required a sympathetic resonance event, a massive, perfectly timed energy pulse through the Chronos Corp global network, synchronized with a specific manipulation of the Godwatch. It would be like hitting the rewind button on a single, edited strand of DNA in the body of time, a high-stakes operation where one miscalculation could unravel everything. As I delved deeper, suspense built with every discovery, the weight of the knowledge pressing on me. What if I failed? What if Julian discovered the bunker first? The isolation amplified my paranoia, every creak of the structure a potential intruder. Implementing the plan meant infiltrating the heart of the beast, the Chronos Corp primary data center, a fortress known as the Citadel, buried deep beneath the headquarters, guarded by layers of biometric scans, AI sentinels, and human security. I couldn't just walk in like a disgraced heir. I had to become a ghost in my family's machine, invisible and insidious. Using my grandfather's journals, I found the back doors he had built into every system, hidden exploits that even Julian didn't know about. I created a digital ghost, a false identity with impeccable credentials as a top-tier temporal systems analyst, a field that officially did not exist but whispered in corporate legends, and got myself hired onto a remote team doing theoretical infrastructure stress testing, my application slipping through the cracks like smoke. My job gave me access to the network protocols I needed, allowing me to plant seeds of code in the system, but Julian's paranoia was a powerful security system in itself, his mind a fortress of suspicion. He sensed an anomaly, a pattern in the data he couldn't explain, subtle discrepancies that nagged at him like an itch. He didn't know it was me, but he knew something was wrong, his instincts honed by years of corporate warfare. He initiated Project Lookingglass, a top-secret audit of all systems, searching for what he called chronometric ghosts, deploying teams of analysts to scour the networks. It became a silent, digital war between us, a cat-and-mouse game where I wove my code into the normal traffic flow, disguising it as routine updates, and his AI sentinels hunted for it with relentless efficiency. I set up decoys and false leads, watching his security team scramble through hacked feeds, my heart racing as they got close, only to be diverted at the last moment. I saw him on internal surveillance, growing more tense, more ruthless, his face gaunt under the stress, barking orders in late-night meetings. He could feel his perfect reality was under threat, and it was making him volatile, his actions unpredictable. The tension escalated during a family dinner at the estate, a mandatory, miserable affair where facades were maintained under crystal chandeliers. Julian was distracted, coldly efficient between bites of gourmet food, his eyes darting as if seeing threats in the shadows. "Father's legacy is a fragile thing," he said suddenly, out of nowhere, his voice slicing through the conversation, his eyes scanning the table and landing on me with unnerving intensity. "It requires constant vigilance. There are those who would see it diminished, who think the past holds answers better left buried." It was a threat, veiled but clear, his gaze boring into me like a laser. He knew I had the watch. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew it was a loose thread in his perfect tapestry. And Julian was a man who burned any loose thread he found, no matter the cost. I met his eyes, forcing calm, but inside, panic surged. Had he discovered more? The dinner ended in strained silence, and as I left, I felt his eyes on my back, the suspense thickening like fog. The date for the convergence was set, the anniversary of my grandfather's retirement, the day Julian's edited triumph would be celebrated company-wide with galas and announcements, the perfect symbolic moment to overwrite it with poetic justice. The plan was a symphony of precise chaos, each element timed to the second. I needed to be in the Citadel to physically protect the core server during the energy surge, shielding it from overload. I needed to be in the bunker to operate the Godwatch, inputting commands in real time. I couldn't be in two places at once, a dilemma that kept me up nights, pacing the bunker floor. So I created a third place, a deception born of desperation. Using holographic projectors smuggled from my workshop and pre-recorded routines synced to my biometrics, I made it appear I was at my workstation in the Citadel, diligently running standard diagnostics, my hologram interacting with colleagues seamlessly. Meanwhile, I was actually in the mountain bunker, monitors surrounding me like a command center. The final hour was a countdown of pure adrenaline, sweat trickling down my back as I watched the clock synchronize. On my holo displays, I saw Julian's security net tighten, his teams closing in on anomalies, my decoys holding but straining under the pressure. I saw the energy levels of the global grid rise as the company's celebrations began, toasts raised to Julian's vision. I watched the clock, each tick a hammer blow. With a deep breath, I initiated the harmonic convergence algorithm, my fingers hovering over the controls. Deep in the Citadel, my code began to execute, routing the entire company's power output into a single, focused millisecond pulse aimed at the core temporal server, the surge building like a storm. In the bunker, my hands flew over the Godwatch's control interface, a complex array of light and sound that responded to my touch with eerie intelligence. I isolated the causal node of the quantum flux solution, the pivotal moment stolen from me, the display showing the two timelines, the bright, dominant branch where Julian was the hero, gleaming with false glory, and the faint, fading shadow branch where I was, dim but true. I entered the final command, the machine whirring to life. The Godwatch flared with incandescent light, the hum rising to a deafening whine that rattled the walls. The crystals spun faster, becoming a blur of light, the entire bunker shuddering as if the mountain itself protested. On the display, the two timelines began to vibrate, then slowly, painfully, weave together, threads of reality merging in a dance of light. And in that moment, a silent alarm I hadn't anticipated was triggered, a fail-safe my grandfather had overlooked. Julian, in his office, saw it flash on his screen, the energy spike tracing not to the grid, but to the geological preserve, his face contorting in realization. He knew, and the chase was on. The bunker door hissed open with a betrayal of sound, Julian standing there, silhouetted against the elevator light, a plasma cutter in his hand glowing ominously. His face was a mask of cold fury, his eyes burning with the fire of a man whose empire was slipping away. "Cassian," he said, his voice dangerously calm, a veneer over the rage boiling beneath. "I should have known. Sentimentality. Grandfather's greatest weakness. And yours." He stepped inside, his eyes taking in the Godwatch, the journal, the truth laid bare, his posture shifting from surprise to calculated threat. There was no shock, only a furious recognition, as if he had always suspected but never confirmed. "So this is his little secret. And you think you can use it to what? Steal what's mine. It was never yours, Julian." I shouted over the whine of the Godwatch, my voice echoing off the walls, adrenaline surging. "He stole it for you. He broke reality for you. He fixed it." Julian roared, his composure shattering like glass, his face twisting in raw emotion. "He made the right choice. You were always weak, Cassian. A dreamer. I am a builder. An emperor. This company needs my strength, not your poetry." He raised the plasma cutter, its blade humming to life, aiming it at the Godwatch with deadly intent. "I won't let you unravel my world." We fought, not just physically in the confined space, but temporally, the bunker a battlefield of science and sibling rivalry. As he tried to damage the machine, lunging with precision, I used the control interface to create localized temporal distortions around him. Momentary gravity wells that pulled him off balance, pockets of slowed time that made his movements sluggish. It was a desperate, bizarre duel, sweat flying as we grappled, the Godwatch's light casting erratic shadows. He was fueled by rage and a desire to preserve his perfect lie, his strikes vicious and calculated. I was fueled by the desperate hope of reclaiming a truth no one else remembered, dodging and countering with improvised defenses. The convergence was at a critical phase, the machine straining, sparks flying as timelines clashed. The bunker groaned under the temporal strain, rocks crumbling from the ceiling in warning. Julian lunged for the main control crystal, the heart of the Godwatch, his cutter inches away. I tackled him with all my strength, our bodies crashing against the central pedestal. The journal fell to the floor, pages scattering like leaves in a storm. The plasma cutter went skittering away into the shadows. We struggled on the floor, two brothers fighting over the corpse of a stolen future, grunts and curses filling the air. And then, it was over. The Godwatch emitted a final blinding pulse of light that filled the room, forcing us apart, and fell silent, the hum dying to nothing. The convergence was complete, the air charged with the aftermath. The silence was absolute, broken only by our panting breaths as Julian and I lay on the floor, exhausted, the fight drained from us. The holographic displays in the bunker flickered and changed, news feeds popping up unbidden, internal Chronos Corp memos rewriting in real time before our eyes. Headlines about Julian's brilliant quantum flux solution glitched, pixels distorting, then were replaced with articles praising my breakthrough, my name emerging from the shadows. His name was overwritten by mine, the timeline healing like a wound closing. Julian watched, his face a canvas of dawning horror as his greatest achievement, the foundation of his identity, vanished before his eyes, erased as if it never was. He hadn't been defeated. He had been unmade, reduced to the brother of the genius, the also-ran, the shadow he had always feared becoming. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw not anger or defiance, but a hollow, terrifying emptiness, a man staring into the abyss of irrelevance. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice cracking, the weight of loss crushing him. "I took back what was mine," I said, my voice weary but resolute, standing slowly as the reality settled. I didn't have him arrested, though the evidence was there. His punishment was far more exquisite, a living hell of obscurity. He resigned from Chronos Corp the next day, vanishing into the world without a trace, a broken man. I didn't take the CEO title immediately, the power too tainted for hasty grasp. Instead, I used my restored position to dismantle Chronos Corp's most invasive technologies, steering it toward ethical innovation with careful reforms. I released my grandfather's research to the world, not as a weapon of chaos, but as a warning etched in history, a cautionary tale for future generations. The final scene. I stand in the atrium of Chronos Corp, the gear-shaped double helix dismantled, replaced by a beautiful, complex sculpture of a tree, its branches whole and strong, symbolizing growth and truth. I am not addressing shareholders in boardrooms. I am speaking to a new generation of engineers and philosophers in open forums, discussing the ethics of creation, the dangers of playing God with time. I am not a king ruling from a throne. I am a gardener, tending to a future I finally own, the sun streaming through the glass with genuine warmth. The most precious thing we can own is our own past. And the most powerful revenge is not to destroy your enemy's world, but to rebuild your own exactly as it was meant to be. If you have a story of reclaiming your truth, share it with Revenza Tales. Subscribe for more stories where the erased are rewritten back into the narrative.